Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when your silence becomes louder than your words, when your distance speaks more than your presence, and when your absence finally teaches others what your availability once hid. The truth is, people start valuing you the very moment you stop being everywhere for everyone all the time. The day you stop showing up for every drama, every distraction, every demand, that's the day your power returns. Because sometimes stepping back isn't losing anything, it's reclaiming everything. When you stop being available to everyone and everything, something magical begins to happen. You start reclaiming your peace, your energy, and your worth. You begin to realize that life isn't about being everywhere, doing everything, or pleasing everyone. It's about being present where you truly matter. Many people spend their entire lives saying yes to things that drain them, yes to people who take advantage of them, yes to situations that steal their peace. But the moment you say no to the wrong things, you begin saying yes to yourself. You see, life has this strange way of teaching us balance. When you make yourself too available, people stop valuing your time. When you say yes to everyone, people start expecting it as your duty, not appreciating it as your kindness. And when you're always there for others, even at the cost of your own happiness, you train them to forget that you too have limits, needs, and emotions. But the day you pull back, when you pause and take a step back to protect your energy, suddenly the entire world begins to see your worth differently. It's not about becoming cold or distant, it's about learning self-respect. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give light to others when your own flame is dying. There comes a time when you must stop being available for the drama, for the negativity, for the gossip, for the endless cycle of doing things just to be liked. Because truthfully, those who only value you when you are constantly available are not valuing you. They are valuing your availability. And those two are not the same. Think about it. The sun rises once a day. The moon appears at its own time. Even nature has its rhythm, its seasons, its boundaries. If the sun decided to shine all day and all night, would we ever appreciate its warmth? No. Because constant availability kills value. When you are always accessible, always saying yes, always showing up, people stop seeing you as a blessing. You become a background noise instead of a beautiful melody. When you stop being available for negativity, you stop being a victim of it. You start noticing how peaceful your mind becomes when you no longer respond to every argument, every insult, every opinion. Not everything needs a reaction. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer. Sometimes walking away is the strongest statement. Maturity is learning that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You can protect your peace without announcing it, and that decision alone can transform your life. When you stop being available for everyone's problems, it doesn't mean you've become selfish. It means you've become wise. Because if you keep rescuing everyone, you deny them the chance to grow. If you keep solving everyone's problems, they never learn to solve their own. Helping people is beautiful, but overextending yourself is painful. And when you finally take that step back, you'll notice that those who truly love and respect you will understand. The ones who were only using your time will fade away. And that's how clarity begins, when absence reveals what presence was hiding. It's in that silence, that stillness, where you find your real priorities. You start asking, who am I when I'm not available to others? What do I truly want to give my time and heart to? And that question alone starts a journey of rediscovery. You realize that your worth was never defined by how many people need you, but by how deeply you live in alignment with your values. When you protect your boundaries, you protect your purpose. There's something deeply empowering about learning to say no, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Saying no is not rejection, it's redirection. You're not pushing people away, you're pulling yourself toward what truly matters. It's not easy, because the world glorifies business. Society often measures your worth by how available you are, how much you do, how much you give. But remember, even the most beautiful garden needs time away from the crowd to bloom. Flowers don't grow by constantly being touched. They grow in silence, in space, in peace. You may lose some people when you stop being available, but you'll find yourself. You may disappoint others, but you'll begin to please your own soul. You may miss out on certain moments, but you'll create new ones that actually bring you joy. The truth is, not everyone deserves your time, not every situation deserves your attention, and not every message needs your reply. Your time is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely, not emotionally. When you become less available, you start noticing who checks in without wanting something, who respects your silence instead of questioning it, who values your presence rather than your service. That's when relationships become clearer. Real connections don't fade because of space, they grow stronger. It's the fake ones that disappear when the benefits stop, and when that happens, don't mourn it, celebrate it. Because life is pruning away what's not aligned with your growth. You'll also begin to feel a deeper connection with yourself. You'll notice how much peace comes from being alone without being lonely. You'll realize that solitude isn't punishment. It's power. In that quiet space, Your mind rests, your heart heals, your vision sharpens. You begin to attract the kind of energy that matches your peace, not your desperation. You begin to make decisions that align with purpose, not pressure. And that's when everything changes. People will start treating you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You've shifted your energy from seeking validation to radiating value. You've moved from chasing people to choosing peace. And the world can feel that. Your silence becomes louder, your presence becomes stronger, and your boundaries become respected. Because when you respect yourself, the world learns to respect you too. There's also a beautiful paradox here. The moment you stop being so available, you become more valuable. Just like rare things in life, scarcity creates respect. Your energy, your presence, your attention, they are precious gifts. Don't give them freely to everyone who knocks at your door. Choose who gets access. Choose what deserves your response. Choose what aligns with your peace. And remember, detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care without losing yourself. It means you give without expecting. You love without clinging. And you help without draining. You learn to balance between compassion and clarity. You realize that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's sacred. Because your peace is the foundation of everything good in your life. And when you guard it fiercely, everything else begins to fall beautifully into place. When you stop being available for chaos, your life fills with calm. When you stop being available for disrespect, you attract dignity. When you stop being available for temporary people, you make space for permanent peace. And when you stop being available for distractions, your purpose becomes louder, clearer, unstoppable. So pause, reflect, step back when you need to. Not every call needs to be answered, not every door needs to be opened, and not every person deserves front row access to your life. Protect your energy like it's gold, because it is. The world will adjust, the right people will stay, and most importantly, you'll finally begin to see how powerful, peaceful, and purposeful your life becomes when you stop being available for everything that doesn't deserve you. When you stop being available for things that drain you, you start discovering how much strength has always lived inside you. You begin to see that peace was never found in constant connection, but in conscious disconnection from what no longer serves your soul. The world may not understand at first. People who were used to your instant replies, your constant help, your endless availability might say you've changed. And they'll be right. You have changed. You've evolved. You've learned that you can't keep lighting others while you're burning yourself out. You've learned that silence doesn't mean absence. It means healing. There's a season for giving, and there's a season for guarding. You can't always be the one who shows up to fix things, solve problems, and carry emotional baggage that isn't yours. There comes a time when you realize that the best way to help others is not by doing everything for them, but by allowing them to discover their own strength. The greatest lesson life teaches you is that your availability should be guided by purpose, not pressure. When you act out of guilt, you lose peace. But when you act out of clarity, you gain power. It's not that you stop caring, it's that you start caring differently. You care with wisdom now. You understand that love doesn't mean overextension. It means balance. It means being there for others without abandoning yourself. You can love deeply but still say, I need time for me. You can support someone and still have boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors with locks. And you decide who holds the key. When you stop being available all the time, you start teaching others how to value you the right way. People will test your limits when you first start setting them. They'll call you distant, cold, or selfish. But remember, those who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always see your self-respect as disrespect. Don't let that guilt manipulate you. The truth is, when people truly care for you, they'll understand your need for space. They'll respect your time. They'll value your presence because they know it's not guaranteed, it's earned. Sometimes, the biggest transformation happens when you learn to say nothing. You don't owe explanations for protecting your peace. You don't owe apologies for walking away from chaos. Silence has power. It confuses the manipulators, calms your spirit, and reclaims your focus. The more you practice it, the more you realize that your peace is not something you find externally, it's something you nurture internally. When you stop being available for noise, your inner voice gets louder. That voice that was drowned by opinions, requests, and expectations finally starts to speak, and it tells you what truly matters: your growth, your faith, your health, your dreams. You begin to invest your time in what nourishes your soul, not what exhausts it. Suddenly, the energy you used to waste explaining yourself, pleasing others, or chasing validation now fuels your goals, your creativity, your purpose. That's when everything starts shifting. You wake up one morning and realize how much lighter you feel. The people who used to drain you no longer have access to you. The situations that used to control you no longer affect you. You've stopped running toward everything and everyone. Instead, you've learned the art of stillness. You now move when it feels right, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but out of alignment. When you stop being available for everything, life rewards you with clarity. You start seeing who truly stands beside you and who only stood near convenience. The distance reveals the truth. Some people disappear when you no longer make things easy for them, and that's okay. Let them go. Their departure is a silent blessing, because every person who leaves creates space for someone better, someone who values you, not just what you offer. And in that space, something powerful happens. You reconnect with your own essence. You remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You start enjoying your own company again. You find joy in simple things, the quiet of early mornings, the laughter that comes without effort, the peace that doesn't depend on someone else's approval. That's the beauty of stepping back. It brings you closer to yourself. You realize that solitude is not emptiness, it's elevation. You learn that being alone is not about isolation but about alignment. You start seeing the difference between loneliness and peace. Loneliness is missing others, peace is finding yourself. When you stop being constantly available to the world, you start being available to your soul. That's when real transformation begins. It's amazing how the world responds to your energy once you protect it. Suddenly, the same people who took you for granted start asking for your time respectfully. The same environment that once drained you now feels lighter because you approach it differently. You no longer give out of compulsion, you give out of choice. Your time, your presence, your attention, they become sacred offerings, not automatic obligations. And let's be honest, at first, it feels uncomfortable. You've spent years being the reliable one, the helper, the listener, the one who never says no. But every no you say now is not rejection, it's direction. Every moment you protect is an investment in your future. And soon you'll look back and realize that the things you said no to were never losses, they were lessons in self-worth. When you stop being available for unnecessary conversations, you begin to value meaningful silence. When you stop being available for drama, peace becomes addictive. When you stop being available for distractions, your focus sharpens like never before. You start achieving things that once felt impossible, not because you suddenly gained more hours in the day, but because you stopped wasting them on what didn't matter. People often say time is money, but time is much more than that. Money can be earned back. Time cannot. Every moment you spend being overly available is a moment you take away from your growth, your purpose, your destiny. So ask yourself, is what you're giving your time to worth the piece of your life it's taking? When you begin valuing your time this way, your life takes a new direction. The truth is, availability without boundaries creates dependency. When people know you'll always be there no matter what, they stop putting in effort. They stop growing because you're always catching them. But when you step back, they're forced to stand, they're forced to face life, to learn, to grow, to evolve. In this way, your absence becomes more powerful than your presence ever was. When you stop being constantly available, you also start noticing who still reaches out genuinely. It's easy to be surrounded by people when you're giving, but the real ones remain even when you have nothing to offer except authenticity. Those are the relationships worth keeping, the ones that survive not because of convenience, but because of connection. In that new circle of peace and clarity, you'll find that life becomes beautifully simple. You no longer chase validation, you attract respect. You no longer fight for attention, you command presence. And this happens not through force, but through energy. When you protect your peace, your energy speaks louder than your words. People can feel your confidence, your self-worth, your calm. You radiate it effortlessly because you've chosen yourself. You'll also realize that success doesn't come from being everywhere. It comes from being focused where you truly belong. The more you say no to distractions, the more space you create for discipline. The more you say no to toxic people, the more energy you have for those who inspire you. Every time you choose yourself, you align with a higher version of who you were meant to be. The world doesn't reward those who are always available, it rewards those who are valuable. And value is built in silence, in moments of reflection, in acts of self-respect, in decisions that protect your inner peace. The stronger your boundaries, the clearer your purpose becomes. Because you can't fulfill your calling if your energy is scattered everywhere. So when you stop being available for what drains you, you become available for what elevates you. When you stop being available for meaningless noise, you start hearing divine guidance. When you stop being available for chaos, your creativity awakens. You begin to see that peace is not a luxury, it's the foundation of everything powerful you'll ever build. In those moments of stillness, you'll realize something profound. Your worth was never meant to be measured by how much you do for others, but by how deeply you stay true to yourself. And the moment you honor that truth, life begins to respond with abundance, respect, and serenity. Because the universe doesn't reward exhaustion, it rewards alignment. So stay grounded in your peace. Stay focused on your path. Let silence be your strength and boundaries be your blessing. Because the moment you stop being available for everything, you make room for everything meaningful to finally find its way to you. When you start valuing your peace more than people's opinions, something inside you changes forever. You stop explaining, you stop defending, and you stop chasing. You begin to live with quiet confidence, knowing that what's meant for you will never require you to lose yourself to get it. The need for constant availability fades because you realize that your time is sacred. It's a reflection of your self-worth. You no longer give your attention to every noise that calls your name. Instead, you listen to the whispers of your purpose. There's incredible beauty in not responding immediately. The world teaches us to react, to answer, to engage with everything that comes our way. But wisdom teaches you to pause. Not every call deserves an answer. Not every text needs a reply. Not every argument deserves your voice. You start realizing that silence is a language too. A language that speaks of strength, maturity, and inner peace. You begin to see that reacting quickly often means reacting emotionally, but responding wisely means acting from calmness. When you master that, your life becomes lighter and your mind becomes sharper. When you stop being constantly available, your priorities shift. You no longer run toward everything that demands you. You begin to ask yourself, does this align with my purpose? Does this bring me peace? Does this help me grow? And when the answer is no, you gracefully step back. That's not avoidance, it's awareness. You stop fighting every battle because you finally understand that not all battles are yours to fight. Some are meant to pass by, to teach you patience, to remind you that peace is more valuable than being right. And that's when people start noticing the difference in you. They see that your silence isn't weakness, it's strength. Your distance isn't arrogance, it's protection. Your time isn't easily given anymore because you've realized that your energy is the most precious currency you own. You no longer hand it out freely, you invest it intentionally. You give it to those who reciprocate respect, kindness, and sincerity, and in doing so, your life begins to fill with balance and harmony. You see, when you were always available, people mistook your kindness for dependence. They assumed your energy had no cost. But the moment you pulled back, they began to understand the value of what they once took for granted. That's the beauty of distance. It reveals what appreciation hides. When you stop showing up for everyone, the ones who truly care will start showing up for you, and the ones who never did will simply fade away. That's not loss, that's clarity. Sometimes you have to become less available to become more peaceful, because peace doesn't live where you're constantly proving your worth. Peace lives where you are enough as you are. It's found in the moments you sit quietly, breathe deeply, and realize that life doesn't need to be a race. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You only need to be true to yourself, and the moment you embrace that truth, a different kind of confidence begins to grow inside you. A calm, unshakable confidence that doesn't seek attention but naturally attracts it. When you stop being everywhere, you become magnetic. People start to wonder where your calmness comes from, where your confidence is rooted, how you maintain peace in a world that thrives on chaos. They can feel the difference because your energy speaks louder than your presence. And you realize that the less you try to be seen, the more you stand out. The less you try to be heard, the more your words carry meaning. The less you chase, the more life flows toward you effortlessly. There's a deep lesson in learning to be unavailable for what disturbs your peace. It's not about isolation, it's about elevation. You rise above the noise. You begin to attract a new frequency of people and experiences, those that align with your calm, your purpose, your maturity. You stop being drawn to drama and start being drawn to depth. You no longer crave attention, you crave authenticity. You no longer chase connections, you attract alignment. That's the quiet revolution that begins when you stop being available for chaos. And in that stillness, you start to see how powerful patience can be. You no longer rush to fill the silence. You let things unfold naturally. You trust the timing of your life because you finally understand that what's meant for you doesn't require you to be constantly present. It requires you to be consistently grounded. You start to see that being unavailable doesn't mean missing out. It means making space, space for peace, space for purpose, space for genuine joy. There will be moments when old habits try to pull you back. The urge to over-explain, to check in, to fix everything, to please everyone. But every time you feel that pull, remind yourself that your peace is not negotiable. You've spent too many sleepless nights worrying about people who sleep peacefully after hurting you. You've wasted too much energy trying to prove your intentions to those who were committed to misunderstanding you. Not anymore. You've outgrown that version of yourself who felt guilty for choosing peace. Now you know that peace is not selfish, it's essential. You also begin to see how boundaries protect not only your energy but your destiny. Because without boundaries, your focus leaks. Without focus, your potential fades. You can't reach your purpose while you're constantly distracted by noise. When you stop being available for every little thing, you start channeling your energy into the things that truly move you forward. You read more, you think deeper, you grow quietly. You start building things that last because your energy is finally invested in creation, not reaction. It's a transformation that happens subtly at first. You spend more time alone, not because you're lonely, but because solitude feels nourishing. You enjoy quiet mornings with your thoughts. You start journaling, meditating, walking, observing. You notice the beauty of slowing down. You realize how much peace was always waiting for you beneath the noise of constant connection. The more you sit with yourself, the more you understand yourself. The more you understand yourself, the less you depend on others to validate you. And as that happens, your relationships evolve too. The ones who truly value you will meet you where you are. They'll adjust to your new rhythm. They'll respect your space. They won't guilt you for needing time alone. They'll understand that your distance isn't disinterest, it's discipline. But the ones who only valued your availability will disappear because they were never there for your soul, they were there for your service. And losing them won't hurt as much as it once did. It'll feel like relief, like breathing after holding your breath for too long. This shift teaches you one of the greatest truths of life. Peace comes at a price, but that price is worth paying. It costs you your people-pleasing habits. It costs you your need for validation. It costs you your fear of missing out. But what you gain in return is priceless. You gain self-respect, clarity, and strength. You begin to walk through life with grace, unbothered by chaos, unmoved by noise, untouched by negativity. You stop reacting to everything that tries to steal your calm because you finally understand that peace is your greatest power. And slowly, life begins to mirror your inner world. The chaos that once surrounded you starts to fade. The people who truly align with your new energy begin to appear. Opportunities that match your peace and purpose begin to flow. You attract situations that feel light, conversations that feel meaningful, and people who feel safe. Because the energy you give to the world determines what you receive. When you stop being available for stress, life stops offering it to you. You start walking differently, not faster but lighter. You speak differently, not louder but clearer. You think differently, not reactively but reflectively. You carry a calmness that cannot be shaken because it's built from within. You've learned that the world doesn't determine your peace, you do. You've learned that saying no doesn't make you rude, it makes you real. And you've learned that being unavailable for chaos doesn't mean you're detached, it means you're disciplined. So you keep choosing peace even when it's misunderstood. You keep choosing distance even when people question it. You keep choosing silence even when the world demands noise. Because you've learned that what's real doesn't need to be loud. What's peaceful doesn't need to be proven. And what's meant for you will never require you to sacrifice your calm to receive it. That's the quiet power of becoming unavailable, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. You understand that you were never meant to be accessible to everyone. You were meant to be intentional with your time, selective with your energy, and protective of your soul. And the moment you start living that truth, your entire world shifts from chaos to clarity, from exhaustion to elevation, from availability to alignment. When you begin to live with this awareness, you no longer crave to be understood by everyone. You stop justifying your silence to those who mistake it for arrogance. You stop explaining your peace to those who thrive in chaos. You realize that not everyone will understand your decision to step back, and that's perfectly fine. Growth often looks like distance to those who haven't evolved yet. It looks like indifference to those who were used to your availability. But in reality, it's the highest form of self-respect, a quiet declaration that says, I choose myself now. You'll start noticing subtle changes in your environment. The conversations that once consumed your energy now feel shallow. The circles that once felt exciting now feel noisy. The activities that once distracted you now feel meaningless. It's not that you've lost interest, it's that you've outgrown them. You're beginning to vibrate on a different frequency, one where peace is your priority, not popularity. You understand that not everything that glitters is gold, and not everyone who smiles has pure intentions. That's why your new availability isn't based on emotion, it's guided by discernment. You become more intentional with your time. You start saying yes only to things that nurture your growth. You no longer engage in conversations that revolve around complaints, judgments, or comparison. You begin to choose silence over gossip, purpose over pressure, solitude over superficiality. This shift makes some people uncomfortable because they were used to the version of you that was always accessible. But you cannot keep being that version and expect to grow. You cannot keep pouring into empty spaces and expect your soul to stay full. You have to make space for your own peace, your own dreams, your own light. And when you do, you realize how much energy you were wasting before. Energy spent defending yourself. Energy spent fixing what was never your responsibility. Energy spent chasing people who were content to walk away. You realize that peace doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from letting go of the need to control everything. You stop fighting for closure. You stop begging for clarity. You stop needing validation from people who were never meant to understand your journey. Instead, you find comfort in knowing that everything you release makes room for something better. You start noticing that life flows more easily when you're not constantly available. Because availability often creates expectation, and expectation often leads to disappointment. But when you live from a place of peace, you no longer act out of obligation, you act out of alignment. You give when you want to, not when you have to. You speak when it adds value, not when it fills silence. You show up because it feels right, not because you're afraid of being forgotten. That's freedom, the freedom of not needing to prove your worth through constant presence. You also begin to understand the power of mystery. When you stop sharing everything about your life, people start respecting your privacy. They stop assuming access to your thoughts, your emotions, your plans, and that's when your energy starts to rebuild. Because privacy is not secrecy, it's protection. It's the sacred space where your dreams grow quietly before the world gets to see them. The less available you are to the noise, the more clearly you can hear the guidance of your own intuition. You realize that not everyone deserves to know your next move. Some things are meant to be lived, not announced. This awareness makes you more patient too. You stop rushing your progress or comparing your pace with others. You understand that peace and purpose cannot be rushed. They unfold in divine timing. When you were always available, your life was filled with noise, notifications, demands, distractions. But when you stepped back, you discovered stillness. And in that stillness, you found clarity. The kind of clarity that tells you what truly matters, what needs to stay, and what must go. That's when you start living intentionally, not reactively. When you stop being available to chaos, you start noticing opportunities that were invisible before. They were always there, but your attention was scattered. Now that your focus is grounded, life begins to open up in ways that feel miraculous. You start attracting people who inspire rather than drain, conversations that heal rather than hurt, and experiences that elevate rather than exhaust. You realize that peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's not the absence of action, it's the presence of direction. You no longer move out of fear, you move out of faith. And faith changes everything. It teaches you that not being available doesn't mean missing out. It means making space for divine timing. You no longer rush relationships, careers, or opportunities because you trust that what's meant for you will never require you to compromise your peace to obtain it. You learn to say, if it costs me my peace, it's too expensive. That simple sentence becomes your compass. It guides your decisions, shapes your boundaries, and protects your energy. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual unfolding, a series of small choices that slowly rebuild your life from the inside out. You'll have moments of doubt where you question if you're doing the right thing. You'll have moments of guilt where you wonder if you're being too distant. But every time you return to silence, every time you feel that peace within you, you'll know you're exactly where you need to be. Because true growth doesn't always look like expansion. Sometimes it looks like withdrawal. Sometimes it looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like doing less so you can be more. When you stop being constantly available, your self-awareness deepens. You start seeing patterns in your life, the times you overgave, the people you overtrusted, the situations you overstayed. But instead of blaming yourself, you forgive yourself. You realize you were doing your best with what you knew. You gave because you cared, you stayed because you hoped. But now you know better, and when you know better, you do better. That's how growth works. It doesn't erase your past, it redeems it. Slowly your emotional landscape transforms. The anxiety that once came from trying to please everyone fades away. The exhaustion that came from overcommitting begins to lift. You start waking up feeling light, calm, and grounded. You learn to protect your mornings from meaningless scrolling and your nights from emotional clutter. You begin to live with rhythm again. You schedule rest the same way you schedule work. You honor your body, your mind, and your soul. And as you do, life begins to align with your inner peace. People may still misunderstand you, but it doesn't bother you anymore. You've stopped living to be understood. You live to be authentic. You don't explain why you're unavailable. You simply choose peace and let your energy speak for itself. The right people will understand without explanation. The wrong ones will leave without closure. Both outcomes serve your peace. And when peace becomes your goal, everything else becomes secondary. You start noticing beauty in simplicity, a walk in the morning, a moment of silence, a conversation that touches your heart. These things begin to mean more than the constant noise of the world. You no longer crave attention. You crave depth. You no longer chase recognition, you chase meaning. You realize that being unavailable to the world's chaos gives you access to your soul's wisdom. You finally understand that solitude isn't loneliness. It's where the soul rests after too much noise. And with that peace, you begin to glow differently. People notice even if they can't explain it. You look calmer, you speak softer, you move slower, but with purpose. You no longer rush through life, you flow with it. You've stopped being a prisoner of constant availability and started being the guardian of your own serenity. You carry yourself with quiet grace, knowing that true strength isn't loud, it's steady. Life feels lighter, not because it got easier, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. You stopped responding to everything that demanded your attention and started focusing only on what deserved it. You stopped trying to save everyone and started saving your peace. And in doing so, you discovered the most profound truth, that the moment you stop being available for everything, you finally become available for what truly matters.